All right. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining our African Tea Time session today. We're very excited on behalf of the African Studies Center to have you here for this second African Tea Time session of the academic year. We had one last month. And before anything, my name is Damaris Choti. I work here at Michigan State University with the African Studies Center. I coordinate student and alumni programs for the African Studies Center. So it's my pleasure and privilege to welcome each and every one of you to our tea time event today again. And you may have read the flyer. I hope you received the flyer. And our session today, it's gonna be focusing on 3 countries and maybe more actually, depending on the case studies that are going to be represented here today. But we have a presenter from Zimbabwe, Uganda, and the USA, representative from the USA. And this is going to be a panel session, and the theme or the topic for today's discussion is media, democracy, and feminist leadership in the media, shaping narratives for social justice in Africa and the diaspora. We are very excited to have 4 panelists, and I have to apologize that one of the panelists' name is not on the flyer if you received it, but we have 4 from Uganda, from Zimbabwe, and from the US, 2 of them actually. So what I'm gonna do, we have a moderator, and I'm going to invite her to continue with the session when she shows up. I don't think she is here yet, but she's going to take over at some point. But for right now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a structure of the presentation for today. So what we're going to do today is that we're going to have I'll do the introduction of the speakers, a brief introduction of the panelists for today. And then we're going to have an overview of the work that Mr. Tseisi's organization, that's Tafadzwa Tseisi, its organization is doing. Organizations, I'd rather say, because he's involved in 2 of them. And that overview will lay the ground for our discussion for today. I know the other panelists are also involved in their institutions and organization in the field of media and journalism. But for the overview, we are going to hear from Tafadzwa's organization. And then after that, we'll delve into a discussion where our panelists will engage us in conversation about what's the landscape for media, journalism, and feminism leadership in the organizations or in their spaces where they're a part of. So at this point, I will start with Mr. Tafadzwa, and Mr. Tafadzwa is the founder and the director of the Journalism Students Network of Zimbabwe, a youth-centered initiative that has grown into Journalism Students Network of Africa. And the Network of Africa is a continental platform connecting and empowering emerging journalists across the region. And Mr. Tafadzwa, under his leadership, the network has evolved into a vibrant community promoting ethical journalism, innovation, and media literacy among students and young media practitioners. Tafadzwa is a media development practitioner and media innovator with a strong passion for nurturing talent among young people. I wouldn't go into, he has a big profile. I wouldn't go into all about his profile, but please, that's why I leave a window for you to reach out to Tafadzwa or to all the panelists that we're going to have today to learn more about them and engage more. The next speaker that I'm going to introduce is Mallory Stiles, and Mallory is a junior here at Michigan State University, majoring in journalism with a focus on international reporting. And of course, in addition to her academic work, Mallory serves as a learning assistant that supports student success in the classroom. And Mallory has been published in 2 separate publications, and most recently, She has contributed to the publication of a book on pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatry disorders. That's about Mallory, and I know there's more that maybe her brief profile has not included. And then we have Immaculate Ogundimu. Immaculate, please, how do you say your last name?
You said it. Owomugisha.
Owomugisha. Thank you so much. So
Yes,
Immaculate,
that's okay.
thank you so much for helping me. So Immaculate is a Ugandan feminist and human rights lawyer and advocate dedicated to advancing gender equality, reproductive justice, and social inclusion. She serves as the executive director of the Center for Women Justice Uganda, a feminist legal and advocacy organization working to amplify the voices of women and girls in their diversity and to challenge structural barriers that perpetuate inequality and gender-based violence. With over 15 years of experience in movement building, policy advocacy and strategic litigation, Immaculate leads initiatives that promote access to justice and the realization of sexual and reproductive health and rights. Her work centers on empowering women and marginalized communities to claim their rights, influence policy, and transform systems of power through feminism, feminist organizing, and legal empowerment. That's briefly about Immaculate, and there's more, of course. And now we have Dr. Folu. He's going to join us, I already said, around 4 p.m. And Dr. Folu is a professor in the School of Journalism and College of Communication Arts at Michigan State University. And Dr. Folu teaches courses on international journalism and media globalization, broadcasting, health communication, and documentary research in journalism and mass communication. He was the director and principal investigator of the WHO Nigeria Polio Communications Project, 2010 to 11. He is co-editor of Media and Democracy in Africa, 2002-2003. I think that's a journal. Oh, and actually an issue editor of Journal of African Rural and Urban Studies. He served as Faculty Excellence Advisor for the College of Communication Arts and Sciences here at MSU, and he has been chair before previously of the African Studies Center Advisory Committee. He has more to his profile, so I want to stop here because I'm glad to see Rofiat in the call. Rofiat, I want to welcome you. Rofiat is a graduate student here at Michigan State University in a department of writing and rhetoric. Rofiat, should I hand over this to you right now so you can introduce yourself more and then take us through the session? How about that?
Are you done with introducing the
Yes.
panel?
Yes, I have. So we're moving into the section where we are going to have Tafadzwa do the overview.
Okay.
But please feel free to introduce yourself more. Tell us more about yourself and then you can continue. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Hi everyone. Thank you for being here. This is wonderful opportunity and I'm glad to be here. I'm sorry I'm late. I was coming from my dissertation prospector defense and I'm happy to say I just passed and I just become a BD. So that's one introduction. My name is Rofiat Bello and I'm a fourth year PhD in RAC as Damari shared. And I'll be joining Damaris to moderate this session. So Dr. Thank you, Damaris. I'm happy to share the news a little bit.
That's okay. We can go ahead and invite, because I've already introduced them, we can go
Yes,
ahead and
yes,
ask Tafadzwa to share
yes.
the screen, please, and then do the overview, and then you can pick up from there. Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
did you
And
activate the share
congratulations.
screen? Thank you.
He's going to share. Yeah, he's able
Is it
to.
Congratulations.
activated? Yeah, thank you. We have Mr. Tafadzwa. Please take over and share with us the overview of your work, your organization, and the process it's in right now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for the platform and congratulations. So I'm just going to share my screen. Please let me know once it's visible and if I am audible as well. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Is it in slideshow mode now?
Yes, yes.
Yes,
Thank you so
please.
much.
Awesome. So to begin with, my name is Tafadzwa Tseisi. I am based in Zimbabwe, Africa, and I am the founding director of Journalism Students Network of Zimbabwe, which has expanded to Journalism Students Network of Africa and is now a member of Africa Journalism Educators Network, which is headquartered in South Africa. So in as far as the Journalism Students Network of Africa is concerned, it's a dynamic organization dedicated to uniting journalism students across the continent and globally. It was born out of the pioneering work of Journalism Students Network of Zimbabwe, um, which has currently expanded its reach to foster a vibrant community of aspiring, young journalists from Africa and beyond. So in terms of the founding members, they are from Zimbabwe, Zambia, South Africa, and Uganda. And our mission is to empower and unite students across Africa by equipping them with knowledge, the requisite skills, and networks necessary for them to become ethical, competent, and impactful storytellers. So in terms of the brief overview, Africa's media landscape is undergoing rapid transformation, and this is evidenced or shaped by the rise of artificial intelligence, AI, evolving audience behaviors, and growing concerns around media sustainability and viability. I think post-COVID-19, a lot of media houses have been facing challenges, particularly for young, students who wanted to go for a attachment or internship, because most of them were on the brink of closure due to media sustainability and viability issues. So this shift, demand a new generation of journalists equipped with the skills and critical understanding to navigate complex challenges while contributing meaningfully to society. And the space is also changing, not just in the way we used to tell stories back then, but it's changing even in terms of, the formats we are now using, the tools that we are now using, and also also cognizant of the fact that we now live in the age of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. So yeah, all of that we also need to be aware of such. So the inception of such a network, it also came against the backdrop of a curriculum that is not in sync with the demands of the profession. And journalism education across the continent then often falls short of preparing students for these realities with limited opportunities for professional development and practical exposure to the changing dynamics of the media industry. So the vision now, when such an initiative came about, it was really anchored or hinged on creating a vibrant and independent African media landscape characterized by excellence, innovation, and a strong commitment to public service. The reason being, when we look at our media, there's so much focus on the political beat at the expense of women, youth, and persons living with disabilities. So if we can then have a media that strikes that balance, especially among young people, then we are more likely to see, these stories being amplified, which also takes me to our mission, which is to empower and unite journalism students across Africa and ensure that we equip them with the skills, knowledge, and networks necessary for them to become ethical, competent, and impactful media professionals. So in terms of the areas of focus, it's really on capacity strengthening, being the main issue here, empowering the next generation of journalists. And this is capacity strengthening through access to essential resources, including technology, training, and financial support, while providing mentorship and guidance to develop skills and navigate the industry, which ultimately assist students in building professional networks and exploring career networks. So such comprehensive training programs covering digital journalism, investigative reporting, solutions journalism, data journalism, and media ethics will really go a long way. I know most journalism educators in Zimbabwe are really doing their best. So not just in Zimbabwe, but in South Africa, Uganda, and Namibia, they are really doing their best. But with such a network, we are also trying to complement the work that they are doing by being more deliberate and intentional, in the sense that we then get to identify the gaps that are there and see which civil society organizations can we collaborate with to cover those gaps. So we also want to foster media literacy and critical thinking. In Africa, I think globally, one would realize that young people constitute a huge demographic of the population. So if we foster media literacy and critical thinking among such a population, this demographic is likely to contribute towards a more informed, media landscape. So through this network, we want to foster media literacy and critical thinking by equipping students to identify key issues and also debunk misinformation, cultivate strong journalistic ethics and integrity, and more importantly, creating a platform for diverse voices, ensuring a more informed and equitable media landscape. Bridging the gap between academia and industry, this has been an issue learning from Zimbabwe. There's been a disconnect in as far as the academia and the industry is concerned. So we have been trying to bridge that gap between academia and industry by aligning curriculum with industry demands, providing practical experience through internships and workshops, and facilitating networking opportunities to expose students to the realities of the journalism profession. Just today, we were participating in a 2-day regional summit that was being held in Zimbabwe, bringing people from Kenya, bringing people from South Africa, from Uganda, from all over, Africa. At the summit aimed at looking into issues to do with media independence and democracy and in the spirit of nation building. So we also invited students from different universities and colleges to actually participate in such, so that they get to network with industry experts. Other issues that we also focus on are amplifying innovation through diverse programs. So the aim being to amplify media innovation by fostering networking, learning, and professional growth through physical and virtual exchange programs, which connect African journalism students with other students from the globe. Organizing events that encourage experimentation with new storytelling formats and technologies, nurturing a community of innovative young journalists. I believe that so far South Africa, Kenya, and Uganda, they are a step ahead in terms of having a vibrant media landscape. So we always try to connect with other colleagues. If resources don't permit, we then do it virtually. So that we get to learn in terms of the best practices, be it storytelling formats and technologies that they are using, so that we also advance in our own nations. Research and advocacy remains key. So conducting research on media trends and challenges in Africa and advocating for policies that support journalism education and practice is critical. And solidarity, we are operating not just in Zimbabwe or South Africa or Zambia, but globally, media is under siege. one would realize that we are operating in a very volatile environment, and sometimes having that mentality of injure one, injure all, it really solidifies our work. So we also seek to foster solidarity by connecting students across Africa and the globe, by driving joint initiatives, amplifying hard to reach communities, those marginalized voices, and advocating for social justice, creating a united front for addressing continental and global issues. So in terms of some of the expected outcomes, it's really media literacy and bridging knowledge gaps, and ensuring that there is increased media literacy among young Africans and bridging knowledge gaps among students from varying contexts. And when we look at young people, young students, these are young people coming from varying contexts, in the sense that some are urbanites, some are coming from peri-urban areas, some are coming from rural areas, and promoting journalism excellency, enhanced journalistic skills and competencies among media students, particularly now in the age of AI. We believe that this will build a stronger network of journalism students and professionals across Africa. Building the next generation of impactful storytellers, we want to see improved quality and impact of African journalism. We believe that our stories are best told by us, and if these young people are well equipped, then we can be in charge of our own narratives. We can set the agenda and best tell the stories that affect us from the vantage point of our communities. So facilitation of partnerships, learning opportunities, this remains key. These are just a few slides as I'm going towards the end of my presentation to say, in terms of some of the recent initiatives that we also do as a network, as the Zimbabwean chapter, we host what we call the Silent Book Club, particularly now in the age where a lot of young people are always spending their time on TikTok, they're always spending their time on Instagram. We are trying to water that culture of reading books. So once every month, we then host what we call the Silent Book Club. This was the October edition. We've already secured dates for the November edition, and usually we are looking at between 90 to 110 people showing up physically. They just bring a book, we have an hour of reading, and then network. So this is one of our initiatives that we are collaborating with Radio Active Blog. It's a global movement that we also tapped into, and the movement is really growing. And every year we host what we call Expo. This year we are in South Africa, at University of Johannesburg, and we use short films to speak to issues relating to sustainable development goals, issues to do with climate change, getting to see how climate change is affecting women, from diverse communities, not just in Zimbabwe but around Africa. So this was 2022, and this was in 2023. And so far we've done Zimbabwe, Botswana. Last year we were in Zambia, and this year we are in South Africa. And my hope is that maybe from some of the people who are part of this virtual engagement, if you can reach out, we can even facilitate for a panel discussion for you guys. If you want to come to Africa, if you want to come to South Africa, we can find a way of collaborating through the Varsity Film Expo. And in terms of some of the major highlights, we've hosted or been part of the reimagining African journalism in the age of AI. This was a national summit. We've done a national journalism summer school, mainly focusing on investigative journalism. And we've hosted digital security trainings, also looking at how tech facilitated violence affects women, particularly in the context of, I'll make an example of elections. Normally, you'd realize that when we are going towards elections and there are women candidates, there's a lot of online gender-based violence based on the people that a certain political candidate, a female political candidate, the relationship that she's had, the number of kids that she has, and so forth. So normally the young reporters who are handling such stories are working on sensitive information without being well equipped in as far as digital security is concerned, they risk losing that information or their computers being hacked. So yeah, we've done digital security trainings, fact-checking trainings in the age of misinformation, disinformation, malinformation. I think these remain key. And in terms of achievements, we've been awarded the prestigious Urban Conference Award that was hosted by a leading creative hub in Zimbabwe, which has also expanded to Africa. It's called Magamba Network for our work in promoting media innovation and literacy. And this was in 2018. And this picture was taken today by one of our members. We were participating in a regional Southern Africa regional summit, and yeah, this picture was taken from today. So in terms of the closing remarks, I would say that Journalism Students Network of Africa, or Zimbabwe to Africa, stands as a vital entity in including young women in journalism and media related issues. I'm sorry, my screen, I see it stands as a vital engine for media transformation, and we actively confront patriarchal norms and foster radical inclusivity by empowering young journalists to become leaders in action. I think one of the biggest challenges that we are still facing in our media, particularly in Africa, is that they remain male-dominated. But we have been deliberate and intentional in terms of being gender sensitive and making sure that we are trying to empower as many young women as possible to actually take up leadership roles, so that we see more women being female editors, among other key issues. So our strategy is simple: equip the next generation, especially women, with the tools for ethical and innovative storytelling. So through focused mentorship and gender-sensitive training, we develop storytellers who shape critical narratives on governance, climate justice, and human rights, amplified by platforms like the Varsity Film Expo. And our networks transnational impact strengthened by partnerships like our work right now with the African Studies Center at Michigan State University, which I'm also I've been part of some of the virtual sessions. This establishes a robust feminist network that amplifies African voices globally. So we are building an ecosystem committed to accountability, equity, and media innovation, ensuring a more democratic and just future for African media. So in a nutshell, that's my presentation. I would like to thank you so much for the platform. Those are my contact details. That's my email, and I'm not sure if there are any questions or any points of clarification. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That was such a powerful introduction. Thank you for giving us a sense of your work, that your organization is doing and the impact it's having. It's very, very inspiring to listen in and hear and also see that your organization is not just only producing media, but also you're building capacity and impact in your community. So thank you very much. We'll get to the question at the end when everybody is done. We open up the platform for the participants to ask questions. But before we get to the questions that we have for all the participants, let's welcome Dr. Ogundimu. Thank you for joining us. As Dr. Choti shared, Dr. Folu Ogundimu is a professor in the School of Journalism and the College of Communication Arts and Sciences at Michigan State University. He teaches courses in international journalism, media organization, health communication, documentary research, and mass communication. He also holds, a lot of positions. He's the director and principal investigation of WHO Nigerian polio. He is a co-editor of Media and Democracy. We've talked about this, but just to refresh your memory, because it's just joining us. We are very glad you could join in, and happy to have you here. Welcome. So let's open up more a little bit about questions, and this is going to the panelists, and anybody can answer. Feel free to unmute. Feel free to show us your beautiful face, so when we see you on the road we can say hi and things like that. That would be grateful. But the first question is basically, thinking about feminist leadership and representation. And I would like to begin with kind of like a broad question to set the stage for our conversation today. And I'm thinking like in your respective context, whether we're thinking about Zimbabwe, Uganda, Nigeria, or we're thinking about the United States. I want to ask, how has feminist leadership in media been used to challenge dominant narratives and reshape who gets represented and how? So I'm going to repeat the question. I'm thinking about how feminist leadership in the media, has been used to challenge dominant narratives and reshape who gets represented and how.
So is this question directed to me or is open to the audience?
No, I think it's open to the panelists. The questions I'm asking is for the panelists. You could answer if you see, or Dr. Ogundimu can answer, and any of the panelists can take on the question. I can put a question in the chat also, if that helps.
I can jump in.
Thank
This is
you.
Immaculate. Yes. Yeah, thank you. And hello, everyone. So from Ugandan context, what we see quite a lot and what we've been doing is majorly centering the feminist at different levels. Beyond the newsroom, we ensure that you know that the feminist principles and the feminist leadership influences policies. I'll give a bit of the recent work we had in Parliament. We were challenging the marriage bill and the sexual offences bill. And these are bills that really are gender rights and women rights. And we needed the discourse to be out there in public. And what we had to do was to bring together the media. For Uganda, Parliament has their in-house media reporting, who in most cases are already biased on certain topics. But our strategy was, after Parliament, then how do we keep the conversation out in the public discourse, in the public space? And what we had to do was to work with already the journalists that have been trained, because from Parliament, the pushback was real. And you could see that the certain language that the media put out there was not the language that we're looking at. They channeled the whole policy influence discussion to just having radical women, feminist women who are against men, which is never the principle anyway. But all in all is what for us we could do from the feminist approach is have a pool of our own journalists that after Parliament, they are able to change the narrative through the way they are reporting and appreciate the issues. Most of these people may not be from the traditional media houses. It's mostly from the online, the bloggers, which most cases are not from journalism schools. Most of them have found their way through the space. I don't know whether those qualify as journalists as well, but I think it works for us from the Ugandan perspective. Then secondly, we also really invest a lot in building movement. We've had trainings with different partners. For example, Akina Mama wa Africa has a media training institute that's a feminist-led organization that does work across Africa. And as Center for Women Justice, we have supported in some of these trainings and bringing together journalists, not at national level, but going up to the district level or the far regions of the country to bring them in the room and take them through the principles of feminism. You will appreciate that actually people really, really never know until they are in the room and made to understand. Then collective action, we believe that, after we've influenced and engaged, what can we take out there? So we've innovatively created spaces like WhatsApp for journalists and feminist leaders to keep us connected, and also for the media people to know that if I have a story to tell and I need a voice to it, whom do I quickly run to? So that connection for easy, where you don't need appointments to reach a civil society or a feminist leader, kind of builds that connectivity and helps us to shape narratives and also work closely with journalists. So I'll pause there for now. Sorry. Back to you.
Thank you for that response and sharing, the things that you're doing to like help feminist leadership through media and how you're challenging dominant narratives. I really like the conversation about the deliberate use of, language that frames feminist movement as something that is against like the, traditional belief of like, you don't like men and all these things and how you're fighting against that. I'm wondering, that was a good response, but if anybody from the panelists can share like any specific example of where they've done one thing that has been successful, to like amplifying marginalized voices or like, especially those of women and youths. Like if you have any specific example of something that you did, it doesn't have to be Immaculate. It could be any other person in the panel to share like a specific example of like, oh, this is one thing we did when this was happening and it was successful. That could give people here ideas of strategies and ways they can go about these things.
I think that I have one. I hope this is kind of on the right track of what you're looking for. Here I can turn on my camera so you can see who you're talking to. Hi. Oh, maybe it's not gonna work. Can you see me?
No, not yet.
Okay, well, I guess my camera's not working today
It's
because
fine.
I have it on. So sorry, but anyway, my mom was on the school board for my high school for 4 years, and in that time there was like a mix where I played tennis in high school and we could not get new tennis courts. They were like falling apart. One of our courts was fully like out of use because of how the holes were on it. And so I gathered some of my teammates. We showed up to the school board meeting. And obviously it did help having my mom there because I knew which way she was gonna vote. But we had all kind of led this like argument that, hey, we need new courts. Our things need to get fixed because this is not like an acceptable circumstance. And after years of people trying to get the courts fixed, we were finally able to do that. And I mean, that was a group of women doing it. We don't have a men's tennis team. Um, but like in that, there was years of trying to fight for it and then finally like succeeding with it. So that's kind of what came to my mind.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that is such, the example you gave is such a powerful reminder of how leadership and representation intersect. And, let's build on that conversation to think about the broader structures that kind of shape participation and access. So for my next question, I'm thinking about when we think about democracy, we think about media.
Uh,
When we think about democracy and then we're thinking about media, media often plays a role like that is kind of like dual. It is sometimes it's very powerful and it empowers you, sometimes it excludes you. And I want to ask the panelists, like in your experience, how do media platform in your country enable or like limit democratic participation and engagement, especially when you're thinking about underrepresented communities? Like, how do you see that playing out?
okay. Am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, great. Sorry, I would have to take you back a bit. I just wanted to respond quickly, within the Zimbabwean context, in response to your first question in terms of how has feminist leadership in our media challenged dominant narratives and reshape the landscape of representation. I just want to say, feminist leadership in Zimbabwe, media has been instrumental, in challenging entrenched patriarchal norms and promoting equity both within newsroom cultures and in the stories that reach public. I would want to make reference to lived realities, like through feminist-driven initiatives such as the Women in News, through One Infra, the Gender Media Connect, and Akina Mama wa Africa, which is currently supporting one of our initiatives, and Fight Inequality Alliance. Among other women-led initiatives, there's been a deliberate and intentional effort to amplify women's voices in critical spaces such as governance, gender-based violence, sexual and reproductive health, and climate justice. So women journalists and editors, as well as media advocates, have pushed for gender-sensitive reporting, fair representation, and inclusive editorial policies that reflect diverse lived experiences. And I think this is really key because it's actually transforming the role of women in media from being merely subjects of coverage to becoming agenda setters and producers of knowledge and thought leaders, shaping national discourse. And for me, I think this is really key. I just wanted to highlight that before I move on to the question around media and democratic participation.
Yeah, thank you for that addition. That's very helpful and also expanding our views of what is possible and how, little things can change a lot of experiences and shape how, we experience the world, especially given different positionality. Um, so, so when we think of, like I'm saying, that the next question is about media, democracy, and participation. I can repeat the question, like for the panelists, I'm asking, like, when you think about democracy, generally, media plays a very significant role, but the role is double sometimes, like it's kind of like a double-edged sword. It can empower and then it can also exclude at the same time. And I'm asking in your experience, like based on your own work that you're doing and the experience and how you've intervened, how do you see media platform in your country or like with the work you're doing? How does it enable or limit democratic participation and also engagement? Especially when you think about it in terms of like underrepresented communities.
I've got another thing, and it's also, again, related to my local school board. So, my mom hasn't been on the board for a couple of years now. She's been trying to get back on, but it's been this whole thing. And basically, with the school boards, they are supposed to be neutral party. There should not be any form of bias towards like your personal beliefs. However, the board, um, after the last election, basically was rigged in order to fully wipe out that kind of real democracy that they used to have. And so now it completely leans in a way of there are four people on the board that genuinely, it seems, don't want best interests of students. And so with that, like there is one girl that is on the board and her boyfriend was doxing one of the members' husbands and her online. So posting on Facebook, this is where he lives, this is where he works, this is what times he's leaving, like go after him basically. Which like he followed it in a way that it's not considered crime. It's, very close to. Um, but with that media usage, it caused that woman to drop out of the race. And also because of the media usage against the like neutral parties that were on the board, like her daughter was getting threatened at school. Her daughter's 9 years old and was getting threatened by kids at school. And it's just really sad to see kind of what my local school boards come to, because the big thing that is like, I'd say the biggest argument right now is they're trying to get rid of school of choice because they think that school of choice children are bringing our grades and test scores down, when really, like, that is not the case. And even if it was, like, one of the board members that's fighting for it, his daughter was school of choice. And so, like, I know the next board meeting I plan on going to and like publicly speaking, but it's just like crazy to me that they're even trying to take that away and they're trying to make the argument. I'm from the Flint area. And so like Carmen Ainsworth kind of has a bad rep with people, even though like you obviously have a mix of all types of people coming from that school. And like there's no just good or bad school. But like a lot of people label Carmen as bad, and so they want to limit the people from Carmen coming over to Swartz Creek as well as like other schools. And so overall, yeah, it's just been a nightmare and trying to kind of kick out people that have less money or um, minorities, different things like that, because they want to keep a specific image at my school that, you know, goes against what they believe.
Thank you, Josephine. Um, Mallory, can you wanted to say something about the question?
I did. Thank you guys so much for letting me be a part of this conversation. This specific question has a really interesting answer hidden in a textbook taught by Dr. Ogundimu in actually a class I'm taking of his this semester. Um, and in this media ethics textbook, it's published in 2022, and it says that there are specifically programs designed to attain and retain women and minorities in almost every journalistic organization in America, but research shows that there has only been sporadic and incremental success. Statistically speaking, 63% of byline credits in print, online, and wire news are men. Additionally, and overwhelmingly in the world of broadcasting, 60% of news anchors are men. The chapter goes on to say that in order for media platforms to stay relevant, they need to remind themselves to keep reaching out to the new majority. And America is definitely facing a lot of different issues at the moment. But I think that that one is going to be incredibly important to keep our eyes on moving forward, just because that majority is always changing.
Yeah. Thank you, Mallory. I know somebody was gonna go after you, but for a moment I want to pull in Dr. Ogundimu because I think Mallory pulled you into this question because she referenced your class, and now it's like you have to say something about that, about that response and how you experience media platform.
Audio now unmuted.
For example, in Nigeria, limiting this kind of experience. Also, you can extend the response a little bit to thinking about when this limitation exists, when you see this limitation happening. Like how have you seen like maybe grassroots or
has left the meeting.
kind of like create alternative spaces or like alternative form of engagement when this limitation exists? So this question is directed to you, Dr. Ogundimu.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And thank you for asking me to participate. I've been really enjoyed the brief comments I've caught already. And I want to extend my appreciation first to Dr. Choti and also to Tafadzwa, for inviting me to this fascinating discussion. I think this is an appropriate conversation to have at this time. And so, in response to a specific question, let me zoom out a little bit. Answer that question from a larger context. That when we think of media and democracy issues, participation, civic engagement, and all that, I want to link it to the whole issue of female gender participation in media, in journalism, in representation of issues in society, and to underscore the importance of this, of what you're doing and the kinds of initiatives that Tafadzwa has been speaking to, that his organization has been involved in. I'm so happy to hear about all the things that they're doing. So let's zoom out a little bit first and foremost and recognize that when we speak of female gender participation and democratic participation, media participation, it is not just about women. It is not just about female participation. It is about everybody's interest that is involved. African women are typically underrepresented in African lives, in African public lives, you see, and that's unfortunate. But African women, African women's issues are the issues of every African. African women's issues are the issues of every African. And until we as Africans recognize the centrality, the positionality of our women in our public lives, and I emphasize public lives because I think we recognize how important African women are in all of our private lives. You see, but we have not given the same kinds of elevation or recognition to their public lives. And that's part of the factors that undermine our democratic participation and our democracies in Africa. So if we zoom out a little bit, I was looking at some data earlier today to look at the female participation rate in the labor force in Africa on average. First of all, let me back up a little bit. First of all, let me say, to underscore the significance of what you're doing today, that 70% of Africans today are under the age of 30. So 70% of Africans today are under the age of 30. So Africa is a very youthful continent, very youthful continent. And in 25 years, that is by the year 2050, a third of human beings on this planet will be living in Africa. So Africa is the future. And as with any population, roughly half of the population are women. You see that? Roughly half of their population will be women. Right now, we say 70% of that population is under the age of 30. About 35% of them are women, 35% of them are men. But when we look at the female participation rate in the labor force in Africa today, it's actually quite good. It's much higher than I thought as of 2024. The average is 52.6%. So increasingly, our women are getting into the labor force. But that proportion is not represented in the media industry. Just as Mallory pointed out with the American example. In the African example, almost 68% of our media workers in the legacy media, that is, are men. So only about 32% are women. Whereas overall, female participation in the labor force is 52.6%. So we need to do a whole lot better in encouraging and bringing women, training women and bringing them into the media labor force. And so we need to do a lot better at that. And then I also looked at the statistic for the participation of women in education. So they can't get into the labor force, the specialized, have the specialized skill sets to get into the kinds of areas we wanted to participate in terms of legal, media, representation, production, and all that, and leadership, if they don't have the requisite education, right?
Mm-hmm.
They can't. So we need to actively train women, begin the training right now for women. Because I look at the data and see that, first of all, the African Union set a Millennium Development Goal to achieve gender parity by the year 2015, so that we have equal numbers of men and women in virtually every professional field. But they were far from achieving that number by 2015. 10 years later, 2025 today, we see that the latest data we have is from Afrobarometer, by the way, in 2024. And we see that when you look at the number of men and women that have completed at least 12 years of school, that is secondary education, that have completed at least high school in Africa, there's an 8% gap between men and women. An 8% gap. Only about 51% of women have completed 12 years of formal education compared to 59% for men. So we need to do a lot better right now in investing in our young females to not only get them through high school, but to get them into universities or specialized professional skills trainings. You know, the situation is bad for the entire continent for both men and women. Only 18% have university education or in universities right now. So you can see that it will be even worse for women. So we need to get more of our women skilled, trained, have active conscious programs to get them training to get into these specialized fields. And then we have to think of media much more broadly than the legacy media.
Mm-hmm.
As some of you have already said and recognized, a lot of the information, disinformation, misinformation is actually happening outside the legacy media space right now. The role of social influencers, opinion makers in this fragmented media landscape is just as important as direct participation in media industries. So therefore, we have to broaden the tools of training that we give to our media workers, to every high school student, every university student, to teach them about media literacy, how to recognize misinformation, disinformation, misrepresentation, and also the dangers of algorithmic curation of news. Every time you click on a news or a story or information on your computer or on your phone, somebody is recording that data somewhere and they're marketing, they're selling your information to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times they use what we call clickbait.
Mm-hmm.
Headlines that will attract your attention or send you video that will attract your attention so you can click on it, even though everything in there is not true and it's not right. You got to be able to figure out how to tell what is true, what is not true in this present information ecosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, we need to provide a lot more training for all of our women and men at the high school level right now, because we have to be teaching the next generation are more vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
to the pollution that is in the information environment today, because of the advent of social media, digital media technologies, algorithmic curation of information, and all kinds of things. They are more vulnerable. And we have to teach them about media literacy and how to avoid those the dangers, the pitfalls, because they will tear our societies apart if we are not careful. And finally, let me just say this finally, that the quality of any democracy depends on the quality of information in that political environment, you see. And if the information is corrupted, the news information about public affairs is corrupted, that democracy is not going to last very long. The politics will be fragile. It's likely to be torn apart. So we have a lot of work to do to train our citizens in this present era so that the eroding trust that we see right now in media industries, in journalism, in journalists, in opinion makers, they have very low trust on the part of the public. And this eroding trust, we need to arrest that eroding trust and boost it back up by doing real hard work. It's important work that we have to do to regain trust in order to have citizen re-engagement and to limit news avoidance or information avoidance on platforms that we work very hard to keep whole. So let me stop there right now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's such a powerful way to think about participation, because now it's not just about gender inclusion, but now we are thinking about it as a collective democratic responsibility that we all have to like shoulder and like do our part and make sure like we are getting involved and we're supporting people and doing a lot of trainings and giving people information, not just even just in the classrooms or like, but also like in different spaces of like, click that, like check the information you're getting from that source is, cross check things like that. I know some people might want to respond to that question, but I want us to move on.
Tseisi to everyone. Powerful. Thank you so much, Professor Folu, for the insightful remarks.
We still have more questions that we want to do. Now, I want us to think about, what strategies, like raising, moving from the question you just answered, and this is going to the panelists. After the panelists, there will be room for the audience to contribute and ask questions. But now I just want us to hear from the panelists what you're doing already that is happening in their organization. So now I want us to respond to like, what are the strategies that you or your organizations have used to resist the stereotypes that some of us have raised, and issues such as like the mistrust, like the advent of social media and emerging technologies, the mis and disinformation, the information avoidance, that everybody have raised. Dr. Folu did a wonderful job of raising that, like what are the strategies, like what have you used to like combat these things that you're seeing that okay, this is happening, we need this, we need that, like what are you doing, what are the practical things that we can do to make this to combat these things that is happening? I know you mentioned some of it, which is like education and but what are other grassroots things that we can do that fine, I might not be able to sponsor somebody to go to school, but like what are the things, that little things I can do to to make an impact, to make changes, to educate people or something like that? I would like to hear what your organization you're getting involved in, or like somebody have told you or something like that. Let me see if anybody is saying something in the chat. Yeah, so if any of the panelists want to share like examples of things that they've done to like address this, that would be great.
Audio now unmuted.
Well, if you want me to start, I can start while others are thinking about your question.
Okay.
So I assume that every one of you is a member of some association, club, group, whatever, right? So could be a community club, could be a church group, could be anything, any association you are. So each one of you is a potential educator in this space. Each one of you is a potential educator in this space. And so I would say begin at your own local group level, any group that you belong to.
Tafadzwa Tseisi has left the meeting.
As a member. So it's important for you to first of all find out, okay, can I find 2 or 3 examples of information or stories or productions that clearly are not true, but have been widely circulated and consumed on social media or the media, right? What kinds of questions can we raise about this production or these stories? How can we correct the information? And use it as a starting point of discussion within your local group about the dangers of misinformation, disinformation, and consuming information uncritically from any source, and how to guard against that and the dangers of that. I think starting at local levels, we can do a whole lot better and encourage people to also educate themselves and spread the religion, essentially. So I'll stop there for now.
Thank you, Dr. Ogundimu. Mallory, you want to come in?
Yes, I would like to jump in, not with my own experience, but with a friend of mine who worked on MSU student newspaper known as the State News. Her name is Jada Vassar, and she is a stunning young Black woman who is more intelligent than I could possibly put into words. She was a copy editor in 2024 for the full academic year, and then she was the diversity, equity, and inclusion desk editor. And that was actually the first year that we had implemented such a thing. She didn't have a lot of experience to look back on, or even any guidance really from any of our faculty that were overlooking us, but she was able to not only reach out to Black-owned businesses and different Black communities to generate ad revenue to help the paper stay afloat, but she also put out a Black-only student-ran podcast that ran for both of the semesters. She was DEI coordinator, and every episode centered around issues that would only affect minority groups on campus. And that was something that we were able to pull in a lot of different radio personalities from around the city to support. And I think it got a lot of good information to the right groups.
Thank you. That's a good example, Mallory. Is there anybody else? Immaculate, do you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I can say something quickly, then I'll be dropping off. I think for us, what we've been doing, and it is, I think, what Prof has overemphasized, that we can all do something. We've been investing quite a lot in building capacity of journalists and media personnel to do gender-sensitive kind of reporting through trainings, but also creating platforms where they can get information, get resources to read about, and be able to learn. There are academies that have been put in place for that regard. But I think what I can speak to more again is supporting what we call traditional media. I think Prof calls them legacy media, which I like. Most of them still have very restrictive in-house policies that do not allow them to report about diverse issues and community that are not really well served. So how we've been trying to circumvent that is through engaging the editors. Oftentimes we focus a lot on reporters, we focus a lot on the frontline media personnel, but we forget that behind them, there is a group of people that look at all the content that comes in. So our initiatives right now, we are trying to drive them towards the editors to see. For them, it's very difficult to put them in a class, so it's more of having dialogues. We are doing media cafes, just simple conversations over tea to keep them updated to the current gender sensitive kind of reporting, but also the needs and asks of the marginalized communities. Yeah, so I'll pause it there and I'll request to leave.
Thank you very much. I like what I'm hearing, and I'm hearing a lot about resistance and reimagination, or like within local context. Like with this, I want to zoom out a little bit, and I want us to think about what happens when those efforts, we try to connect them across borders. Like now we're not thinking about locally, we are thinking about, transnational collaboration and solidarity. And I'm thinking, how can transnational feminist media, collaboration between Africa and the diaspora strengthen like global solidarity and social justice movements? Like, what are you can give examples of the things that you've done. I mean, maybe example of cross-border media projects or partnership that you have probably done yourself, or the ones that have influenced your work, you know. So you can give examples of that, like
So can I give an example?
yes, that would be great.
So
Thank you.
yeah, so because I live in Uganda, and Uganda is one of those countries that have very, very strict laws on issues that some people don't think are the issues that push up morality and all that, especially LGBTQ work, especially these days we are having a lot of backlash on gender language. So what we've done, and I also work in the extreme area of HIV, and we've had to look for cross-border kind of reporting, because our media houses or our media personnel sometimes are targeted, and you do not want to risk the freedom of expression. So what we do is have allies in other countries that you talk about, and they have a platform where they can report. So it is very critical to like have them mapped out. If you have issue that you cannot broadly speak about within your own context, then you have a colleague in Zimbabwe who can influence, and you have it run in a widely read media, in a journal, so issues go beyond the borders. So is that our collective kind of doing media work has to go beyond the borders, because we fit so much, but also it is a way of supporting colleagues who are in a country where laws are restrictive, where policies are not enabling enough for people to express themselves. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that example. Dr. Folu, you want to share? Because I see a lot of your work is cutting across continents. I think you're muted.
Zoom us has new window. Audio now unmuted.
Okay, good.
Noise removal is on.
Can you
Mute my audio.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, thank you. No, I like that last example that was given from Uganda, and I just wanted to contribute to that and say that I want everybody to realize that given today's digital media landscape that we have, Africa is not unique in terms of exploiting the opportunities that are available on digital media landscape to set up cross-regional collaborations. So in other words, you training institutes in Africa, you need to be providing young people the training and skill to be able to set up media online with their host URLs in countries outside their home countries. You see, if you're in Uganda, You can set up your hosting facility in South Africa or Zimbabwe or in Malawi. You see that? And set up a whole publishing suite, online. So teach young people how to do productions, how to write, how to produce, shoot, research stories, tell people stories of interest, and put them on their platforms that are hosted elsewhere outside the country where the laws are restrictive. That's what's happening in the Middle East. We see happening in Middle East. So Egyptian media is one of the most restricted media in the entire Arab world. But yet, a lot of the things that the Egyptian state authorities don't want Egyptians to see, they actually, Egyptians are consuming that media from independent journalists that are based elsewhere in the Middle East, in Beirut, in Turkey, in UAE, in other places, right? And that content gets a lot of attention from Egyptian audiences. And those content producers are also making a whole lot of money because they can get advertising from the region because of the popularity of their channels or their productions on these digital channels. And the Egyptian authorities don't have a way of stopping these trans-border flows of information over the internet. And if you are based in Uganda, where you know that content is restricted and you're going to produce that content, get a VPN, a very private network, so that you can send your data through that VPN and Ugandan authorities can see the information. You see that? And that information will still be out there. Got it?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank
I'm
you
going to
very
stop
much
there.
for sharing that. That idea of connection and also like shared struggles is leading us naturally to think about the future. How, thinking about how we sustain this effort and also make systemic changes possible. So, in reimagining like media futures, like, and trying to look ahead, what shifts, for example, do you think are most needed in the media ecosystem? I know we've been addressing this kind of thing in terms of whether funding, policy, training, ownership to support a more just, feminist, and democratic media places. Like, what are the things that you think needed? Like, I like some of the things that I think we've answered some of this question earlier on, but like I also want to emphasize it and draw attention to it. Like, this is what we need moving forward. Like, this is what we need to focus on. This is how we need to achieve this. So it could be like an end and some kind of takeaway for our audience and also for each and every one of us to like, okay, this is what we need to do moving forward. Um, and the kind of role we all need to play, like, in terms of funding is a very huge thing. We all know what is going on with funding everywhere now. It's without funding, it's kind of like your backbone or like your legs and hands are caught and you're stranded. But I also like the idea of like alternative media, of like you don't have to go through the legacy media. They're like cheaper alternatives and things like that. So maybe like things around that conversation of like, now we are imagining how to move forward. These are the things that is needed, and this is what we need to do moving forward. So I like response from any of the panelists on how we can imagine a just future that is feminist friendly, that is democratic, enabling.
Audio now unmuted.
Well, some of the African speakers they're already very active already in building programs, doing training and all that. So I always say they should use the same kind of skill towards grant writing, proposal writing, focused on setting up
Immaculate, Owomugisha has left the meeting.
Setting up media channels and programs that address these specific issues. And we still have some institutions here in the US, even though a whole lot of funding has been cut back, but you can still get funding for such programs from places like the IPI Institute for International Press Institute, Washington Press Foundation, Ford Foundation, the Laura, what's her name? The former wife of Melinda Gates, Foundation. No, not Gates, well, maybe Gates funny. I'm thinking of the former wife of the Amazon founder. What's her name? Um,
Um, yeah,
anyway,
I know what you're saying. I forgot the
yeah,
name.
yeah. Anyway, but she also supports a lot of initiatives focused on women, in particular. So you can write proposals. I would say work on grants. We can collaborate with uh, uh, our African studies here, contact our African studies to partner with them. They can bring me in for advisory in shaping grants that will be directed at setting up specific media training programs and media channels that you want to set up within the region to address the kinds of issues you're talking about. So it's part of the next work that we can do together. Yeah.
Thank you. Mallory, do you have anything to add to that?
I did. I also was trying to look up the law that I remembered. Maybe Dr. O can help me. But there was a specific law in America that kept licensing to certain percentages. Like no one could own more than I think it was 33% of the airwaves or something like that. Just because we've seen so many monopolies completely dominate just the ecosphere of media in general, I think it would be a great idea to make sure that legally moving forward, a diversified landscape is not only, necessary, but illegal to not have because monopolies are just one way that anyone and everyone can lose their individual voice.
Thank you so much, for your very thoughtful insights and generosity today of your time. As we wrap up like the conversation with the panelists, I want to bring us back to the heart of this conversation, which is the power of feminist vision and leadership in shaping narratives for justice and empowerment in our community, and also thinking about it across borders. Um, this we have heard such rich perspective for our panelists. Thank you so much. And I want to open the floor to everyone who has joined us and who has been very, very patient with us. If you like to ask a question, feel free to unmute yourself or drop your question in the chat. Also, if you don't have a question and you have a reflection or something that connects to your experience, I think Josephina shared, and we can all share something like that, like something that connects back to your experience. You can also share that with us. That would be great. So you can jump in, and from the audience, if you have any question or reflection, or you just want to thank our panelists, that would be great. I'll leave a couple of minutes to hear back and see. I'll be monitoring the chat to see if there's anything there.
Bello.
Yeah, please, welcome back. We assume the
I'm,
internet.
I'm, I'm really sorry for the technical glitch. One of the biggest challenges we are facing in the country is that of
Yes.
high data cost, and I just realized that my data that I'd purchased had just vanished. So I had to try to make other arrangements and run
Yes,
around and
I know that
so
feeling. It's so sorry.
I had a few. I'm not sure if you were now wrapping up the meeting, but I had just maybe final remarks that I just wanted to reflect on.
Yes. Now I'm just waiting for like the audience. If anybody has like questions or something they want to say, then I'll come back to the panelists for like a final remarks. So
Okay.
yeah, Mallory.
I would actually like to hear from Wazi if I could, just more about the fact-checking trainings that were being implemented. I think that'd be incredibly useful for America at the moment, and I just wanted to know some more.
Okay. Thank you for that question. So that is directed to you, Tafawat. Like what are the Mallory is directing you to, I think, some of the things you shared earlier, which is like the fact checking the trainings you're doing on fact checking, and she wants to hear more. So it would be wonderful if you can share more about that and how that process is going.
Okay, so that's directed to me.
Yes.
Okay, great. So maybe just to begin with, we live in the age of misinformation, malinformation, disinformation, and deep fakes. I've noted when there are elections, like in the States, you'd see a video of be it Barack Obama or the President Donald Trump. He seems to be saying things that he's not actually saying. So in Zimbabwe, these things are also happening. So we've been deliberate and intentional in terms of having to create strategic synergies with fact checkers such as ZimFact, whereby we are now setting up fact-checking clubs within different universities and colleges around the country, so that we also strengthen the capacity of young students in terms of having to identify some of these fake news or misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation. So on a regular basis, what ZimFact, one of the leading fact checkers in Zimbabwe, does is that they release a fact sheet where they get to shine the spotlight on issues that are not more like a myth buster, or shining the light on the truth and demystifying what is fake and what is real.
Okay.
So we then try to circulate that within, because in Zimbabwe you'd find out that a lot of young people who constitute a huge demographic of the country's population, about 79.9% are youths, and they regard WhatsApp as their internet. So we then circulate these infographics, these fact sheets in different WhatsApp groups. We also try to leverage on the existence of campus radio stations to disseminate such verified information. According to Afrobarometer, radio remains one of the widely mediums for accessing information. So we are also trying to utilize the existence of campus radio stations in terms of having to disseminate verified information.
Very, very cool. And actually, one last question for you. I'm so sorry. You mentioned,
No, it's all right. It's all right.
I appreciate it. You just mentioned advocating for certain policies that supported journalism education and standards. And I was just wondering if you could quickly run through what those policies look like, just in case we wanted to introduce them in the US.
Okay, so maybe to begin with, in Zimbabwe, we have a very good constitution that was put up like in 2018. And when we look at the some of the fundamental human rights principles that are enshrined in that constitution, such as Section 61 and Section 62 of the Constitution, they speak to key issues such as freedom of expression, access to information, but in reality, there is freedom of expression, but no freedom after expression. So when we are now advocating for
I think it's probably his network again. So
That was the best part. I was really getting excited.
yeah. I really like your first question and how he's answering it and thinking about, like, he's also referencing what Dr. Ogundimu said, like, with the population of Africa. Are you back? Because I see he muted himself,
Yes.
so maybe the internet came back or something.
Yes, I'm back. Can
Yes,
you hear
please
me?
continue.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine.
So yes, I was saying, so in our constitution we have a very a good blueprint. Like on paper, everything is really good. Section 61, Section 62, among other clauses that you speak to access to information, freedom of expression. But unfortunately, there is freedom of expression, but there is no freedom after expression. So part of our, or one of our key pillars as a network is to uphold such fundamental principles and make sure that we continue advocating for such, to be exercised, because we believe that an independent press or an independent media is the cornerstone of any democracy. So that then is linked to what Professor Folu was saying in terms of having to even ensure that we have, the next generation is more vulnerable. So media literacy remains key. So the quality of any democracy then depends on the quality of what we are also doing, like at a grassroots level. So for us, we are really trying to be more deliberate and intentional in as far as that is concerned.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a brilliant answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question?
Yeah, can I go, Rofiat?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you so much. I've really been sitting back because I facilitate these tea times, and I'm realizing that I really need to be a part of the audience than facilitating, because I've learned so much. Because thank you, Rofiat. I know you took the hard part. I really want to say thank you for everybody that was in the panel. So my question is, and I think it has already been answered partly, it's about AI. Tafadzwa mentioned about it a little bit, but I'm just wondering from your experiences, or we know it's a newer type of thing, I would say, but how do you think it's gonna, or is it impacting the landscape of media? And you already talked briefly about how you find like fake news or just presentations in the media of people talking when they're not the ones in reality. So just briefly, how is it, do you think this is going to impact the media space, like the AI generation, and how should we incorporate it in our work? Because I don't really think AI is going anywhere anyway.
Look, thank you so much for that question. AI is here to stay, and
Yeah.
it's a matter of us adapting or dying. To be honest, for me, I believe that it's an enhancer of our profession. But however, we just have to give that human touch, to the work. Because at the end of the day, as media practitioners, as media professionals, we then have to go back to the basics of media ethics. We have to abide by basic tenets of journalism. Yes, you can prompt a certain task, to be given by AI, but that is not factual information. And you'd note that maybe in the context of Africa, it's not yet giving us content like in vernacular or local languages. So sometimes if you type an African name, either it's is it Gemini or ChatGPT or any other AI tool, you'd find out the information is still limited to a certain narrative, not really like an African narrative. So while it's here to stay, we also have to treat it with caution. We should use it as an enhancer to our work, but we shouldn't like 100% rely on it in the sense that our work is fully dependent on it. We should just, treat it with caution. Yes, utilize, but know where the limitations are, because at the end of the day, we're supposed to be truth tellers. And we are supposed to abide by fundamental principles of our craft, which is fairness, balance, accuracy, and all those media ethics.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And
all the
sorry.
best. She's gone, Josephine. She said she has an exam.
Oh, sure.
All
That's
the
fine. I
best.
mean, we're kind of wrapping
Yeah.
it up here. And also, I just
Yes.
wanted to point out, just comment on what Dr. Ogundimu said. And I think it's just reality that in fact, I wrote it down. I think someone says, each one of us is a potential educator. Just simply that. Because sometimes, even if step aside from this discussion about media and democracy, think of anything, any issue in society that it's affecting humanity. Sometimes we distance ourselves thinking that, oh, that's not my field. Oh, there's nothing I can do. Oh, I'm not the president. Oh, I'm not the leader. Oh, I'm not this and that. But I always think, and truly so, that we all have something to bring to the discussion. Number one, we all have something to do to become part of the solution. So this, I had to write it down because that's how I feel. In any situation, there's something that you can do. Sometimes we don't know how and what, but we need to sit back and say, from where I'm sitting or standing, what can I do? Ask that question and the answer will
Audio
come. If
now
you
unmuted.
didn't ask it, period. But that was powerful to me. Thank you, Dr. Ogundimu.
No, thank you. Just to put meat on what you just said, it is a very important comment. We know from our research in many fields of communications research and behavior, we all already know from our own work too, we know that much of the conversation, public discourse that takes place about anything happening in society, from the price of food to the actions of the president, anything happening that affects people's lives, the lived realities of people's lives. Much of that conversation actually is not taking place in the media. The information that actually convinces people about their lived realities, much of that conversation is taking place within family communication networks, within social networks. You see that? So, in other words, the conversation that is taking place amongst women, when we did research in northern Nigeria, for instance, on the polio vaccination program, the conversation that the women were having within women's household compounds and networks and groups where men were not present was far more important in getting those women to take their children for vaccination than
There you go.
money that was being spent on media campaigns. You see that?
Yes.
By the same token, from other research that we've been involved in, we know that when people read or hear something on radio, on television, or read in newspapers, they discuss within their family, homes, or compounds with their friends, their neighbors, their parents, their siblings, you see, and the quality of that discussion and the information or the resolutions that they make out of that conversation is far more conclusive, far more important in shaping behavior and opinion than any propaganda that is built up through the state channels. So that's very important to keep in mind. That's why every one of us is a potential educator in whatever place we find ourselves, to be able to contribute to conversations and share our own knowledge about what we know and question.
Manga to everyone. Very insightful discourse.
You see? Yeah. And thank you very much. I have to run also very soon. I have to catch a
Yeah,
bus.
yes, thank you. Thank you very, very much. We are almost at time and we are wrapping up. I will have invited, I mean, if Mallory wants to say something as a reflection, a final reflection, or if any of the panelists want to say something as a kind of final reflection for us to wrap up, that would be great. We do not want to keep people beyond what is needed. But thank you so, so much. This is very powerful and this is very insightful. Yeah.
I would just say thank you. I have absolutely nothing to add. There is such a wealth of information provided, and I just cannot be more thankful for being allowed to be a part of the conversation. So thank you guys all so much, and I hope you have a great night.
Thank you. Tafadzwa?
I really enjoyed these conversations.
Yes, over to you, Emmy.
I just wanted to say thank you for having me. The discussions were really insightful, and I learned a lot.
Thank you, Amy.
Amy, can you introduce yourself? Oh, she left? Oh, I just wanted her to tell us whether she was a student, but that's okay.
Next time.
I think Tafadzwa was going to say something, and Damaris, you spoke over it.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the platform. I really appreciate the insightful submissions from everyone, and I hope to be part of the next panel discussion, to also learn and network with other colleagues as well. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. So I just, on behalf of the organizer, I want to thank our panelists for sharing their time and their wisdom, and for all of our audience for engaging so thoughtfully and staying with us to the end. And I hope we can all leave this session thinking about how to continue to shape media spaces in a way that center care, community, and also courage within Africa and across the world. So thank you very, very much. And with this, I say have a good night and you're free to go.
Bye, guys.